Okay, welcome everybody to a very special edition of our Decanted series with Wine Access. My name is Deyvanshi Masrani. I am with Haute Living, and I have everyone here with me today, so this is very exciting. I'm going to start first and foremost with Caroline Frey. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm going to run through her bio very quickly and then introduce our two other guests, both of whom you've seen very often, of course. So, Caroline Frey was only 24 and had just graduated top of her class from the Institute of Oenology of Bordeaux when she was handed the keys to 80 hectares third growth Chateau La Lagune in Haute Meadow, acquired by her father Jean-Jacques Frey, a businessman and 45% shareholder of Champagne Billecart Samon. And again, apologies for the pronunciations. I'm trying my very best, everybody. You can tear me apart in the comments if you'd like.
Beautiful.
Caroline would inject her own expression and start making Bordeaux that balanced ripe fruit, bright acid, and structured tannins, earning her rave reviews. Today, the vineyard has grown to 100 hectares, and Caroline Frey has also established herself as one of the most respected young winemakers in France. In 2006, the Jaboulet family handed over their historic northern Rhône house to the Frey family. Caroline would then embark on a mission to bring back Paul Jaboulet Aîné to its former glory, extensive work in the vineyards with redefinition of the company's Hermitage ownings and the creation of Hermitage La Maison Bleue, in addition of Domaine in Côte Rôtie and Condrieu, a new gravity flow winery in 2010. In 2018, Rhône specialist Jeb Danak gave the 2015 vintage of Hermitage La Chapelle 100 points, saluting the finest wine from this estate in close to 30 years. The incredible turnaround in quality is also noted by Joe Serwinski. The glory of Jaboulet is the legendary Hermitage La Chapelle, which is finally reflecting all of the hard work put into the vineyards by the Frey family and the Jaboulet team. In 2014, Caroline adds Burgundy to her French vineyard with the 10 hectares Chateau Cordon André, now Chateau Cordon C. Mentored by the late legendary winemaker and scientist Denis Dubourdieu, Caroline was instrumental in the 3 estates organic certification in 2016, Lagune, Jaboulet, and Cordon C, and their subsequent conversion to biodynamic practices in 2019. In 2017, Caroline Frey was also knighted as a Chevalier de l'Ordre National du Mérite for her work in holistic agroecology. Wow. Welcome, Caroline. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Of course. And Vanessa Conlin was head of sales and marketing for several of Napa's most prestigious estates, including Arietta Wines, Dana Estates, and Realm Cellars. Previously, she was a retail buyer and wine director in New York, where I am right now. She's president of the board of the Jameson Animal Rescue Ranch, holds the Reset Diploma, and was the recipient of the Nikki Singer Memorial Scholarship from the International Wine Center. Vanessa became the 52nd Master of Wine in the United States in February of 2020. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you. So great to be here.
I feel like I don't really need to welcome you because it's a dynamic duo over here. I love it. And of course, Kamal Hachandani, our CEO of Haute Living, and recently launched the Haute Wine Society. I know everyone knows him well as a very illustrious wine connoisseur, but he's also worked with some of the biggest wineries and winemakers in the world, some of the biggest wine houses and vineyards, including Dom Perignon, Louis XIII, which is cognac, but still, it counts. So welcome, Kamal, who's in Miami right now, who's also super excited, as I know, to be here today with you, Caroline and Vanessa. So, of course. So before we get started, I just want to share a quick video to introduce this segment to everybody today. So bear with me while I share my screen. And here we go. Can you see it? I think you should, right?
Yes, perfect.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I feel like we should clap.
I know.
It's just, I like to start with this short video because for me it's important to know that in my approach, we are not only focused in the viticulture and in the vineyard work, we work with nature, and it's really a global approach, and we consider in the work, we consider the vineyards, but also all the area around the vineyards. That's why you can see vineyards, but also biodiversity and other plants, and it's really this this global approach, which is very important for us. So.
Well, it shows, and that video was the perfect way to introduce this segment. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Caroline, to introduce these beautiful wines we all have sitting next to us that we're all dying to share.
Yeah, so tonight we have three wines. They are part of the historical wine of Jaboulet. Jaboulet, the estate was founded in 1834, and we own vineyards in all the main appellations of the northern Rhône. And tonight we are going to try a wine which are located in a meander of the Rhône. So we will see later on the map, but we will have Domaine de Roure, which is a Gros Hermitage, coming from the small part of Gros Hermitage, which is behind Hermitage, and then a white Hermitage called Chevalier de Steringberg. I know this one is not easy to pronounce in English. And then, of course, the famous La Chapelle in the vintage 2016, which is, it's very young, but it's probably one of my favorite vintage. So I'm very happy to share it with you tonight. So yes, this is the program.
Wonderful. So do you suggest we start with one in particular?
I would say we can start with a Domaine de Roure, then we start with Gros Hermitage, and then we move to Hermitage. And yes, for me, it's not a problem to start with a red and then be back to a white wine, because the white from Hermitage are quite powerful, so no problem to do this way.
Well,
Caroline, I actually had a question as we begin tasting. I had a debate with myself whether to use Burgundy glasses or Bordeaux glasses today. And I went Burgundy, but I'd love to know your opinion.
Oh yes, at home I usually use the Zalto glasses and the universal glasses. I like those glasses for every kind of wine, and Bordeaux, Rhône Valley, white, and even Champagne are very good in those glasses. But I'm sure it will be very good too in the Burgundy glasses, because it's young vintage and they really need to open up. So it's a good idea.
Well, and cheers.
Yeah, cheers. I'm really happy to share this tasting with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Wine Access.
One note also for anyone who's viewing this at home, the last wine that we'll be tasting today, the La Chapelle, is actually being offered today on wineaccess.com. So if you're interested in trying this beautiful wine at home, you can go to wineaccess.com and order it there.
I actually saw it there earlier today. I checked the site because I know we spoke about that, so it's great. And Caroline, we have a question from one of our viewers who are tuning in. If you can please show us the bottles, or show the viewers the bottles once more, so they can
the bottle of Domaine de Roure?
All three of what we're tasting.
Oh, okay. So this one is Domaine de Roure. And you can see in each label, you can see a little bit of the story of each vines. And here, for example, you have a bird on the label. It's called Guêpier d'Europe, and it's a very special bird which we can find in the vineyards. Here, it's Chevalier de Steringberg, with the famous knight who built the chapel in 1234. Sorry. And then La Chapelle, with this very famous label.
Wonderful, beautiful. Thank you.
So,
And Vanessa, I'll hand it off to you.
Oh, thank you. Caroline, again, thank you for being here. It's such an honor, and I'm just thrilled to be tasting these wines with you. But I wanted to ask just a bit about taking over, because I know Paul Jabelet, and it dates back to 1834. You took the reins in 2006. So for a property with such a sort of a long history, how did it feel to take the reins? And were there things that you decided to change right away, and were there things that you thought, oh, I'll never change?
So of course, it was a big challenge for me because it's one of the oldest winery in the Rhône Valley and one of the famous winery in the world, especially with La Chapelle. And you know, La Chapelle 61 is like mythical wine. So of course, when I did my first vintage in 06, and when I had to take the decision to pick up the grapes and choose the good day, and yes, it was not easy. But my only goal was to first take my time, because I was I knew it would take me several years before to understand each vineyard, to understand each wine. So my state of mind when I started was like when you start a marathon. So I breathe, and yes, and also I was lucky also to be able to work with the old team in the vineyard, the people who were working at Jaboulé for many years. So I arrived with the goal to change several few things in the vineyards to improve the viticulture, but also with this idea to learn from the people and from the vigneron. So I try to find a balance between those two things. And then my goal was first to be able to express the identity of each terroir in the wine, of course, and especially La Chapelle. And then to consider that viticulture has to be an accompaniment of nature and not a fight against disease, against weed. This was my two main goals. And then step by step, we improve every year and we are still improving. And I think I will still improve something until the end of my life. So there are so many things to understand and to learn and to improve when you work with nature.
Well, and for anyone at home who does not have the this wine in front of them or have tasted this, we're tasting Syrah, and which was something I wanted to ask you about also, Caroline, which is, I absolutely adore Syrah. I can say everyone at Wine Access adores Syrah. It doesn't have the recognition with consumers, at least American consumers, as Bordeaux varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon. So what do you think that people should know about Syrah, and why should they try it if they haven't?
Many good things about Syrah in the northern Rhône. First, you have to know probably that the birthplace of Syrah is here in the northern Rhône, between Côte-Rôtie and Hermitage. Syrah is a blend of two grapes, of course, Mondeuse Blanche coming from the Alps, and then Dureza coming from Ardèche, which is the right bank of the Rhône. So yes, I think it's the first things to know is that Syrah was born here. And then it's interesting also to know that Syrah is here planted at his northernmost latitude. And you probably know that Denis Dubourdieu often said that the condition to have the best expression of a grapes is that the grapes has to be planted in the northernmost latitude, and that's one of the good reasons to try the Syrah from Hermitage or from Côte-Rôtie. And then something which is also very interesting here is that in all the appellation of the Northern Rhône, Côte-Rôtie, Saint-Joseph, Cornas, Hermitage, and Gros-Hermitage, it's only 100% Syrah. Or sometimes in Côte-Rôtie you have a little bit of Viognier in the blend, but it's only Syrah. And if you compare different wine, and we will do it tonight between Gros-Hermitage and Hermitage, you will see that the expression of the Syrah can be here very, very different. So yes, you should try the Syrah from this place.
Well, you mentioned Denis Dubourdieu. I wanted to ask a question about him anyway, so this was a perfect segment, or segue, I should say. I also read that when you studied with him at University of Bordeaux that you graduated at the head of your class, so very impressive. So was there one piece of advice that he gave you that you still sort of have in your brain that you take into harvest every year?
Yes, I think each time I go in my vineyards, I think of some Denis' advice. He's like a little voice every time here. But he told me something which is very important for me. He told me the taste of a great wine. And he told me that to produce a great wine, you should already have the idea in you of what it should like. It should taste in your mind. So he told me that this is very important to try and to taste a lot of great wine, to build a kind of archetype. And then when you have this archetype in your mind, you can start to have an idea of what your wine should taste like. And then Denis was a scientist, and he told me that every choice in vineyard and in the wine making has to be confirmed by experimentation. So that point helped me a lot, especially in biodynamic, where it's very important to make a comparison between organic and biodynamic to be sure that biodynamic will be better. So I do a lot of experimentation.
Sounds that way.
Can you tell us more about that? What sort of things are you experimenting with this year?
For example, we started organic viticulture, the transition to organic viticulture in 2006. And then it was a first big step for us, especially to work the soil. Because we have steep slopes in the Rhône, so it was not an easy part. And then I was really personally convinced by biodynamic, but I have to convince all my team around me. And it's not an easy thing, because biodynamic is more about the invisible part of the life. So it's not easy to explain to all your team that you are going to use the biodynamic preparation and all these things. That's why I decided to do a lot of experimentation, especially in Gros-Hermitage. In one plot, we separate the plot in two parts. And one was in organic viticulture and the other in biodynamic viticulture. For example, in 2017 vintage, the summer was very dry, and we make an experimentation about the 500 preparation which is the, I don't know the name in English, but it's the preparation, the co-manure preparation.
Okay, one of the biodynamic preparations?
Yes.
Yes.
So one part received this preparation and the other part was only in organic viticulture. And we can see during the summer when it was very dry that the soil which received the biodynamic preparation was still very wet, while the other part was very dry and yes, very dry. So okay, it's not easy to explain this with a scientific arguments, but we were able to make the observation in the vineyards, and that's the most important things. So we have done this kind of experimentation with other preparation, and then we vinified these blocks separately, and we also bottle the wine separately, and we are able to do blind tasting of organic and biodynamic. And each time when we try the wine, we are around 10 people to taste the wine in the blind tasting, and each time everyone prefer the biodynamic wine. So that's and yes, we do this kind of experimentation every year, just to be sure we make the good choice.
Right. You mentioned the steep slopes. What sort of considerations in terms of viticulture do you have to consider on a slope versus if you were on, let's say, a valley floor vineyard?
If we are, sorry?
What considerations are different when you approach viticulture on a slope versus on a, let's say, a valley floor or a flatter vineyard?
Oh, the main point is that you have to do everything by hand. So, and for example, plowing the soil, when it takes few hours with a tractor, right. In the slope of Hermitage, for example, we do it with a cable. It's 100 hours per hectare. It's very, very long. So, and even all the biodynamic preparation or spraying by hand. So yes, the work is very long. But we have in Jaboulet, we have slopes, and we also have flat vineyard, for example, in Gros Hermitage. And when I ask the people working in the vineyard if they prefer to work in the slopes or in the flat part, they always say they prefer to work in the steep slopes. Mm. It's a culture, and they are very proud of this. So it's interesting.
And how often do you have to rebuild the walls?
Oh. Sometimes it's in some years it's more expensive to build the walls than to work the vineyards. So, but it depends of the actually it depends a lot of the rainfall. So, in 2008 we had a lot of rainfall in September, sorry. We have to rebuild many walls. But when they are built in the good way, they can age very well.
Well, Kamal and Deyvanshi, what do you think of the Gros Hermitage?
I was actually just going to ask Kamal, because you opened, Vanessa, with you know, sort of perceptions of Syrah in America. So I was interested to hear what Kamal had to say about this.
I've actually, I've been appreciating Syrah more and more, and just even more wines from the region. So, you know, seeing this and appreciating your biodynamics and your approach to do that, that's something that's become very important in my life. And the fact that you guys had the vision 15 years ago to do that and maintain the quality of the product and actually improve it. You know, sometimes I feel when it comes to taste, when things are biodynamic, you lose some of that, but it's actually very refreshing what you did, like a piece of art. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. if you want just to see we can, Deyvanshi, we can show the map, perhaps, just to show where is located this domain. It's a small domain. It's only the domaine de Rône. We have white wine, and we also have of course, the Syrah, and it's only 3 hectares of Syrah. You can see that Domaine de Rône is really behind Hermitage on the west part. Yes, here. And the particularity of this place is to be, it's the small part of Creuse Hermitage, which is behind Hermitage. The other part of Creuse Hermitage is on the eastern part of the Rhône Valley, and we have pebbles coming from the Alps. But here, Domaine de Rône, it's only granite. So you have 100% of granite. And the vineyards are at 300 meters of altitude. So it's a really slow and progressive maturation. Usually we finished harvest here, and then you have this very pure expression of Syrah on a granite soil. It's really, there is a nice length, and you can feel the texture of the tannins, but it's here, but it's soft, and that's really and a good acidity, because and we are very lucky to have those granite soil, because when we have high temperature and warm vintage, the granite is very important, because it brings a lot of acidity to the wine, and natural acidity. So we are always able to produce a balanced wine, even when the weather is warm.
Well, you can feel it.
Yeah,
I love the photo. It's a beautiful visual, Caroline.
we can. Yeah, I actually, just going back a bit to the sort of American comparison, we actually got a question come in from a viewer asking about how Rhône Syrah actually compares to some of the American, maybe from Washington Syrah or even Australian Shiraz. Anyone has any? Maybe Vanessa or Caroline. Caroline's giving me the face like, I don't know.
I'm very sorry, because I didn't know very well the Syrah you are speaking about. So perhaps Vanessa will be better.
Absolutely. So I'd say, so the question was about how does Syrah from the Northern Rhône differ from Syrah from Rhône in other places, and specifically they were referencing, for instance, Washington State here in the United States, or Shiraz grown in Australia. So I'd say, of course, everything can differ by producer, but in general, I'd say from the Northern Rhône, there's a freshness to it. There's a perfume. In some ways, it almost drinks a little bit more like Burgundy. This is why I chose a Burgundy glass to use today. So I would say there's an elegance, a finesse, a sort of lightness on its feet in addition to sort of a power at the core. But for me, it's just defined again by this sort of the freshness of the region.
That's a great word to describe this, actually. It's very fresh, not refreshing per se, but very fresh.
Right. I mean, there's structure, there's body, there's power at the core, but there's still this sort of like beautiful lift, I think, on the palate. So bravo, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I couldn't wait to start. I actually cheated and I started tasting our white wine today. I couldn't wait. And actually, I'd love to. Of course, we'd love to hear you describe it, Caroline. But I guess to start, to go back to sort of the American consumer, I'd say that white wines from the Northern Rhône, I think, are not very well represented or not as known. So let's say for someone who has not had an Hermitage Blanc, what can you describe it? And are there other wines that are similar?
Yeah. That's why that's right that today Hermitage white are not very well known, but you have to know that long time ago the white wine from Hermitage were more famous than Syrah. So, but that's true that today it's not anymore the case, and even the in the vineyards, I believe that the white represent perhaps yes, 25% of the planted vines. So it's really a small area because the whole appellation is 130 hectares. It's the area of Chateau Lafite Rothschild, for example. So it's a small appellation. So the production of the white is really confidential. It's small. Then you have to know that the white are a blend of Marsanne and Roussanne, and Roussanne is not a lot of is not a high percentage today because many estates had pulled out the Roussanne in the past because it's a very sensitive grapes. And the Jaboulet family always keep the Roussanne in the vineyards because Louis Jaboulet said that Roussanne brings freshness and acidity to the wine. So Chevalier de Steringberg is 2/3 of Marsanne and 1/3 of Roussanne. And the Hermitage white are powerful and rich white wine, and definitely a real gastronomic wine. But they are able to have a richness, length, and balance, and it's what we are taking care to be able to balance the power and the richness of the wine, and to keep freshness and balance. And they can age very well too. We have very old Chevalier de Steringberg in the cellar, like 80, 83 or 86, and they are very, very good.
Can you describe what those two varieties bring to the blend, Marsanne and Roussanne?
Yes. So, of course, the impact of the grapes is very important, but also something which is more important is where they are planted. And we have a lot of different type of soil in Hermitage, but it's very important to have those grapes variety on the top of the hill where we can find loess, which are richer soil, and they're able to keep a good hydric stress in the vineyards. And then Marsanne is a powerful wine, rich, and you can have this very little bitterness at the end of the palate, and it's very interesting, and that's why you can match this wine with food and sometimes with yes, very cooked meals. And then Roussanne brings acidity and perfume. It's a very delicate grapes, and it's interesting to blend both.
And so who was the Chevalier de Steringberg?
Oh, that's a long story.
I wanted to know that.
That's a long story. But he is very important in the story of Hermitage Hill because actually he built a small chapel on the top of the hill of Hermitage in 1234 after he gained the permission from the Queen Blanche de Castile when he returned from the crusade. So he's the one who started to plant vines in Hermitage Hill. So without this famous knight, Gaspard de Steringberg, you know, perhaps the story of the wine would have been different. So we have to thank him a lot.
Cheers,
So,
cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers to him, absolutely. Caroline, you mentioned this is a very gastronomic wine. I would agree. So what are your favorite pairings with this wine?
I will miss my English words too. Something like, of course, all the white meat, but with you can cook a beautiful sauce. I think the sauce is very important to match this wine with the food. All the wine from Hermitage, the white and the red, they match very well with any kind of truffle. So if you have a little bit of truffle, you put truffle on pasta, for example, and it would be very good.
I think all three of our faces just lit up when you said truffle.
Truffle is always a good idea with Hermitage.
What do you two think of the wine, Deyvanshi and Kamal?
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I don't drink too much white wine, as Kamal and Vanessa know. But I really enjoy this. And the first couple of sips I had, the first thing I thought was this needs to be with food. It has to be like something I eat something with it. It would go so nicely. I don't eat meat, but I still think it would go really well with like a nice sort of more heavier fish, like a more powerful fish. I think it's definitely, to me, tastes like a really great wine to pair with a great dish. For truffles, for sure. I mean, I would have pasta truffles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but certainly wine will make it a lot better somehow.
So I decanted my La Chapelle. Is that what you would have recommended, Caroline?
Yes, good idea. I didn't decanted mine, but I will probably finish the bottle tomorrow. So.
Okay.
Kamal wasn't as lucky. He didn't receive his, so he didn't get his decanting moment.
Oh no! Oh no!
It's okay though. We'll let you know.
Okay.
But I supplemented with one of her Bordeaux's. So.
Okay.
Yes, I have seen La Lagune before.
So
That's not a bad idea. It's a good idea.
He's not missing out too much.
No, but I actually want to thank Caroline and Wine Access, because to me, a big part of my wine journey has been education. So to be able to learn firsthand about the process and what goes in, and especially in a world now where things are just so filled with marketing or, different things, to be able to see a family business and the fact that, you guys were very progressive in this biodynamic space, and to be able to learn about it firsthand is a great tool. So thank you, Wine Access, for continuing to make this wine journey even more memorable and enriching by learning what goes through the process. So for myself, even though I have been drinking wine and passionate and, acquiring wines, every day you learn something new, and every bottle is a different journey. So thank you guys, in having us as consumers on this. And Caroline, this story is unbelievable of the family business. So I congratulate you guys. And
Thank you.
Loving your product from all three of your different vineyards that I've tried so far.
Caroline, could you describe or explain what the Mistral is and what effect it has on growing grapes in the Northern Rhône?
Oh, it's a very strong wind coming from the Mediterranean, but it's much more true in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. In the Northern Rhône, it's windy, but we are not very affected by Mistral here. But it's a windy region, and it's very good because we said when we have wind, it replaces a treatment. Wind help us to keep very healthy vineyards, and compared to Bordeaux, for example, where the weather is often very wet and we have no wind, so the mildew, for example, is much more active in Bordeaux compared to the Northern Rhône. Yes, the weather in the Northern Rhône is very good to cultivate vineyards. If we speak about La Chapelle, perhaps we can show again the little picture, and I can show you the different terroirs and where we produce La Chapelle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so first, as you can see, this is a very beautiful place. And usually the great wine are coming from beautiful place. So it's very important, I think. And so just to speak briefly about the geological story of Hermitage, because this is very interesting. This small hill you can see just behind the Rhône. This small hill is very special in terms of soil because we are in the middle of two mountain range. On the right bank, we have a mountain called Massif Central with the granite from the secondary era. And then on the left bank, we have the Alps, which brings pebble from the glacier. And here, the very special things is that the Rhône River carves a channel through the granite massif. So it means that the only place where you can find granite on the left bank is Hermitage. And you can see here on the map the part called Bessar. It's pure granite. And then during the Quaternary era, the pebbles coming from the glacier cover a part of the hill. And the place called Le Méal, which is in the middle of the hill, is white pebbles coming from the glacier. So you have a different type of soil thanks to this crossroad between the mountain. And then the wind brings a lot of loess on the top of the hill. And if you also consider the different sun exposure, altitude, and the wind exposition, you can understand that we have a lot of different type of terroir here in the Hermitage Hill. And I like to explain this story because you understand that Hermitage Hill is a kind of mix between Massif Central and Alps. And Syrah, the grapes, is also a mix between the grapes coming from Massif Central and the grapes coming from the Alps. And La Chapelle is also a blend of all these terroirs. La Chapelle is not a single vineyard. It's a blend of all the terroirs of Hermitage. And that's probably why La Chapelle is a good reflect of this small hill, which is so complex and so, yes, magical. So you can see, yes, Bessar, Méal, and then, I'm sorry, it's not very clear, but on the eastern part you have Roucoule, which is also a part of the blend of La Chapelle. And yes, that's the story of the wine.
Actually, on the note of blending, we had a question come in from somebody. Is my screen's not sharing still, right? You can't see.
No.
Okay. We had a question come in about if you add any Viognier to the Syrah fermentations.
No. You can add Viognier in Côte-Rôtie. Viognier is only planted in Côte-Rôtie and Condrieu. And in Côte-Rôtie, you can add until 15% of Viognier in the blend. And in Hermitage Hill, you also can add some white grapes, but it's not Viognier, it's Marsanne and Roussanne. But I don't know any winemaker who is blended white grapes and Syrah in Hermitage. It's really something you can find in Côte Rôtie.
Understood. Great.
Um,
It's from someone who's tuning in called Sam. So Sam, Caroline just answered your question.
Deyvanshi, you were making me very nervous when you were screen sharing because your battery is getting low.
I know. I actually.
anxiety.
It's a new laptop, so I didn't want to pre-charge it or anything. I'm letting it do its thing. It's good though. It's holding steady.
It's great.
Right.
Sure, it's great. I'm one of those people, I get to like 80% and I'm like, you know.
I'm like that too.
Nervous,
Normally. I'm just pretending not to notice it, but thank you for pointing me out.
Well, Caroline, this wine is absolutely beautiful. I've actually been at La Chapelle twice, once when it was freezing cold and once when it was very, very hot. But both times it's just breathtaking. And for me, standing on top of that hill and having that view, there's just almost nothing like it. It's for me like seeing a celebrity, you know, to be standing on that hill.
This place is really this place is really special actually, and if you have the chance to when the situation will be better, to travel and to have a walk in the Hermitage Hill, then you understand that a great wine is not only about technical things. It's not only about tannins, perfume and texture, and it's really about yes, vibration and emotion. It's something which is different.
It's something magical there, for sure. And again, I just wanted to mention for anyone who's watching this from home, the La Chapelle is available right now on wineaccess.com. And actually, I didn't mention at the beginning, the first wine we tasted, the Crozes Hermitage, is also available at wineaccess.com if you'd like to try these. But Caroline, I wanted to ask you something about sort of working or making wine in a number of different regions. And Kamal mentioned he's drinking Chateau La Lagune. So I'm curious about making wine in the Northern Rhône, making wine in Bordeaux. Do you have to sort of, put on a different hat and approach things very differently from one region to the other, or is winemaking sort of similar between the two?
It's not similar. I like to say, because I played piano for many years when I was young, and I like to say that making wine in those different places, it's like a pianist who is able to play Chopin, Beethoven, or Mozart, or any other compositor. Of course, you need to have perfect techniques, but then it's a question of intention. So it's really how I approach this exercise between those different places. I try to be perfect in all the technical questions, and then that's why it's so long, and that's why when I arrived in La Lagune, when I arrived in Jaboulet or in Burgundy or in Switzerland, I knew that even if my technique are perfect or should be perfect, it would take many years before being able to have all the complexity in the wine. And to be honest, my first vintage where I said in La Chapelle, I was feeling that something interesting happened, and it was not only a good wine, it was a great wine. It's 2012. I think this vintage is a kind of step for me.
I see.
9 and 10 were very good vintage, so of course the wine are wonderful, but I believe since 2012 there is a little things more in the wine.
Well, I also played the piano. I used to play the piano, and my parents are both watching. They're classical musicians, so they're going to love your references to Chopin and Beethoven. So thank you for that. But actually, you mentioned vintages, and so that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you again, sort of with the comparison of Northern Rhône to Bordeaux, which is how often are they great vintages in both, or does it differ very much?
It can be very different. Even for example, 2020 was very different. We had a lot of rain in Bordeaux, and it was very, very dry in the Rhône Valley. So when I was in the Rhône Valley, and we have to face this very long dry period, and I asked my vineyards manager in Bordeaux how things are going on, and he said, "Oh, we have too many rain." And I said, "But it's not possible, it's so dry here." And then the opposite, when I was in Bordeaux, and it was raining, and then it was so dry. So it can be very, very different. And sometimes that's a pity, because usually the image of a vintage is built by Bordeaux. Because Bordeaux is the first region in France to show the wine, to show the primeur tasting. So the first idea of the people about a vintage is coming from Bordeaux. And for example, 07 was quite a normal vintage in Bordeaux, but it was very good in the Rhône Valley. And we have to explain a lot that 07 is a very good vintage in Hermitage. So no, it can be very different.
And what also then, just to stay on this theme of sort of comparing the Northern Rhône to Bordeaux, in terms of ageability and cellaring, what would you say, do they have similar sort of lifespans in the cellar, different? Very different?
It depends of which wine, but if you compare, for example, La Chapelle with the first grape growth in Bordeaux, for me, it's quite the same potential aging. I did a very great tasting when we arrived in Jaboulet. Someone asked me to participate to a tasting about the 61 vintage. This guy organized tasting for very private collectors, and it was a tasting with 11 wine from the vintage 61 coming from Bordeaux. So all the first grape growth, so Pétrus, Latour, Margaux, Lafite, Latour à Pomerol, and all the beautiful wine from Bordeaux. And then the last wine from the flight was La Chapelle. And the guy asked me to come to this tasting to present La Chapelle. And I was just arrived in Jaboulet, and of course I said yes, but I was a little impressed to did this presentation. And we tried all the 61, and all the wine were very, very good, of course. And I realized that the level was very high. And I was thinking that La Chapelle has to be very, very, very good after all this great wine. And when we poured La Chapelle 61, we started to taste the wine, and it was like a long silence in the room tasting. And then all the people stand up and applaud the wine. It was absolutely wonderful. And the main difference for me between La Chapelle and the other was that La Chapelle has a very young mouth with a very nice flesh on the palate. So no, those wines from the great Bordeaux and the great Hermitage can age very well. And of course, then if you compare, I don't know, Saint-Joseph or you will have different aging potential, but you can find very good Saint-Joseph on interesting terroir. No, it's not a question about aging potential between those two places. They have the same argument.
I see. And to go back to gastronomics, what would you pair with La Chapelle?
I would say that I'm sorry, Deyvanshi, because you don't eat any meat, but no, a beautiful red meat, well, again with a nice sauce and again with truffle would be absolutely perfect. But then I think it's also a wine when it's young that can be enjoyed just alone. Because for me, when you open a bottle of La Chapelle, it's like having a conversation with someone. Because you put your nose on the glass and you have some perfume, huh? And then you wait, and 10 minutes after it will be different, and even the texture will change a lot. So I would say that I can be able to have my bottle of Chapelle just alone, you know, without any meat. Or it's great to cook, it's great to enjoy it with food, but sometimes just stay in your sofa, open your bottle, and enjoy this pure moment of tasting.
I completely agree. It's so complex. I mean, a wine like this, it just makes me want to sit down and enjoy it, but ponder it. I could think of about a million descriptors right now of this wine. There's so many things happening in the glass, and it keeps changing. So I agree with you. I think it would be a beautiful pairing to something like a red meat, but it's worthy of your full attention, even without a pairing.
And then, because I don't eat a lot of meat at home because my daughter doesn't eat meat at all. So I cook a lot of vegetables, and sometimes I try to take inspiration from the northern Italy, because they have this very, I love Barolo, for example.
Yes.
In Italian food, you can find interesting recipe with only vegetables. And for example, a Parmigiana is a really interesting recipe that you can pair with a powerful red wine. So it's a bit long to cook, but it's a long cooking in the oven. So it's really, comment on dit, confit.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can try this. It's very good.
That sounds beautiful. I could have this by itself for sure. I would definitely feel like I need to read a book while I'm drinking this wine. It's so rich and beautiful. It's lovely. Really enjoying it.
Absolutely.
Caroline, for somebody who's never had, somehow never had any of your wines before, what would you tell them to start with, or any advice or any pointers you want to give?
To start with, I would say that, for example, Talabert in Gros Hermitage is really an interesting wine. It's because it can give you an idea of, but it's difficult because it's like if you ask me if I have any preference. You have to try all of them.
That was the correct response. That's
no, but they are so different, and even the Saint Joseph is. We have a small vineyard in Saint Joseph. It's again pure granite, and we only produce 2,000 bottles, but it's. I love this wine, and the Cornas, it's another expression of Syrah, and Côte-Rôtie, it's much more this kind of Burgundian style. Difficult to choose one.
You just have to choose them all for anyone that wanted the response to that question. Vanessa, do you want to end with any notes, any additional questions you'd like to ask?
I have one last question that I would love to ask Caroline, which is I also read that prior to winemaking that you were a competitive show jumper. So
Yes,
I'm wondering if
that was a long time ago.
Is there anything that you learned from working with horses and being a competitive show jumper that has made you a better winemaker?
Oh, I think it was a very interesting school for me. I think competition is a good school in any sport, but yes, with horses you have to be patient, and it's a way to work with nature. So probably it's something similar. There are similar things with the wine, but something which was probably interesting to learn with horse riding is that it's the only sport where competition is mixed between men and women. Mm. And I think it was a good way to learn how not to pay any attention to be a woman in a male-dominated business. So I think, I think I have the same quality then. And then another thing which is very helpful for me in the wine, but also in my life, is that when you do jumping, you have to learn to look after the obstacle. Is that right? Yes. So that's a good life approach.
I like that answer.
Great response. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we've run out of time, but first of all, I want to thank Caroline very much for your time. I know it's quite late where you are right now, so we really appreciate you being.
I'm ready for the dinner.
Oh, wonderful! Even better. Now you have some beautiful wines that have been breathing and ready to go. So this was really lovely. And to Kamal's point, the educational perspective, but of course, more than that is the personal touch of the stories behind the vineyards and the family businesses are really something that Wine Access, really puts a great spotlight on. And we're just so pleased to be a part of this journey with you guys and your whole team. Vanessa, thank you so much for everything as always. It's just such a pleasure every time. And of course, I'm not going to thank Kamal because I'm thanking everyone on behalf of both of us, but it's always great to have Kamal's perspective as well. Just so many different, different types of people, different wine journeys and coming together. Though we can't share this wine together in person right now, certainly hoping we can do so in the very near future. And we have some really great wine content coming out with Wine Access soon. So everyone, please tune in and keep up with us on both of our sites, hauteliving.com and wineaccess.com. And like Vanessa said, I'm actually going to let Vanessa tell you once again the wines that they have available from Paul Jaboulet on the website before we.
Absolutely. So the first wine that we tasted, so the Crozes Hermitage is available right now, as is the La Chapelle, which was the third wine that we tasted. And I believe there are links in the chat, or you can go to wineaccess.com.
Yes, we linked all of them in the chats, and we'll have a recap as well with the links. Kamal, why don't you sign us off?
Yeah, so thank you, Caroline. Thank you. The wines are beautiful, and I can't thank Wine Access enough. And it's become a very essential service in my life. So if you haven't ordered from Wine Access, you'll be very impressed by the packaging, temperature control, and the technology, and most importantly, the fact that Vanessa and the team has visited every vineyard and has a story behind it that you can actually enjoy and see the true beauty behind the wine. So thank you, Wine Access. Thank you, Caroline and Deyvanshi. Thank you for driving this partnership and putting together this beautiful day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Caroline. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.